I welcome the Minister for Employment and Minister Assisting the Prime Minister for the Public Service, Senator the Honourable Michaelia Cash.
Thank you, Chair.
I also welcome the Honourable John Lloyd, Public Service Commissioner, and officers of the Australian Public Service Commission. I note that this will be the last attendance at estimates proceedings for Commissioner Anwen Goodwin in her roles as Merit Protection Commissioner and Parliamentary Merit Protection Commissioner. The committee wishes her well. I draw the attention of witnesses to an order of the Senate of 13 May 2009 specifying the process by which a claim of public interest immunity should be raised. Witnesses are specifically reminded that a statement that information or a document is confidential or consists of advice to government is not a statement that meets the requirements of the 2009 order. Instead, witnesses are required to provide some specific indication of the harm to the public interest that could result from the disclosure of the information or the document. The committee has set 8 December 2017 as the date by which answers to questions on notice are to be returned. Officers called upon for the first time to answer a question should state their name and position for the Hansard record, and witnesses should speak clearly into the microphone. Minister, do you wish to make an opening statement?
I don't, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr Lloyd, do you wish to make an opening statement?
No, I don't, Chair.
Thank you. In that case, I will kick off proceedings. Mr Lloyd, I want to ask you some questions about threats made by the CFMEU about public officials. Are you aware of the CFMEU rally in Melbourne on June 20th of this year?
Not specifically, Senator.
Perhaps as I go on, it will jog your memory. Mr Setka was in attendance of at that rally. He's the State Secretary of the CFMEU. I'm going to quote some comments made by Mr Setka at the rally, and I will be careful to do so in a way that doesn't broadcast inappropriate language. He says, "Let me give a dire warning to them, ABCC inspectors. Be careful what you do. You know what we're going to do. We're going to expose them all. We will lobby their neighbourhoods. We will tell them who lives in that house and what he does for a living, or she. The kids will be ashamed of what their parents are. We will expose who these ABCC inspectors are. They say that there's two things you can't avoid in life. I say there's three. One of them is taxes, one of them is death, and the other one is the construction unions, because when we come after you, you better be careful." Are you familiar with those comments?
Yes, I do recall them.
From the point of view of the welfare of public servants, do you have any comment on the appropriateness of public comments like these by union officials?
No, I was concerned any threats like that against any Commonwealth official is a matter of the utmost concern.
How do threats like this made by the CFMEU affect those individuals that are named?
Well, look, I'm not sure they were named, but it certainly would cause unease. Commonwealth public servants have an obligation to go about their duties conscientiously and thoroughly, and to have threats like that made against carrying out duties in that manner is uncalled for, and I think a matter of concern, and would of course be of concern to the particular individuals involved, and in this case perhaps their families.
You're right in this instance. I don't think the actual names of the inspectors were used, but they were certainly referred to in quite a specific way. But of course we do know that the CFMEU and Mr Setka in the past have referred to officials by their name, including yourself at public rallies.
That's certainly the case, yes.
Are you aware that this particular rally was posted, a video of this rally was posted on the CFMEU Facebook page?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
I'm advised it was. Other than your own personal experience, are you aware of comments of a similar nature made by Mr Setka or other CFMEU officials?
Look, a sense of the industry is that threats, comments of that nature are not uncommon. Going back to my time as Commissioner, as matters were referred to police.
There was one instance in 2012, again referring to ABCC inspectors. Again, I'm going to read this to the best of my ability, avoiding putting inappropriate language on Hansard. There's an old saying, my mum used to use this saying, and I've said it once before. She used to say, the more that you touch excrement, I'll paraphrase, the more it smells. Well, that's them, they are excrement. They are the excrement that they are. And just for the task force, or rats or dogs, whatever they are, just remember one thing. When this is all over and they don't exist anymore, we've got to work elsewhere and remember them because we know every effing one of them. We will never forget them. Do you recall that particular statement?
I do recall that. The date, I think, was 20...
I had 2012.
Well, it's very similar to comments made when I was Commissioner. Very similar, so which would have been...
earlier.
Yeah, 2010 or earlier.
Yeah. Just refresh the memory of the committee when it related to you personally. Was it Mr Setka involved in this incident, or was it a different official?
Yes, it was Mr Setka.
Right. Are you aware of any complaints made or concerns raised by ABCC staff as a result of these repeated threats to them?
I'm not aware of any complaints made to the APSC. None came to us. I understand the latest comments were subject to investigation by the AFP. I don't know the outcome of that.
Does the ABCC, to your knowledge, have to take steps to protect the identity of the staff, to protect their safety or their families? Yes,
my sense is, I'm sure it's continued from when I was there, that there are steps taken to ensure that inspectors are instructed about the robustness, at times the inappropriate conduct that they're subjected to when they go onto building sites. So there was, and I'm sure there still is, training given to encourage them to be, if you like, resilient, but to also for management to be aware of when such conduct is affecting an inspector, and also to reassure them that if the line is crossed, well then management will take action.
Are you aware of some of the more recent comments regarding Luke Collier, another CFMEU official who made threats to public servants at the Barangaroo building site?
I'm aware of newspaper reports about that and media reports, yes.
I'm advised that he called a FWBC inspector, or he said to an FWBC inspector that he was lower than a pedophile, called a different one an effing grub, and also read out the mobile phone number of an inspector over a megaphone at the building site. Is that align with your recollection?
I'm aware of those types of comments, yes.
And there's also been media reports that Mr Collier has threatened a female building instructor. I apologise, there's no way of saying this without saying it, calling her an effing slut.
I know that there was some very robust, wrong, abusive language on that site. Yeah.
Are you aware that this particular female FWBC inspector who was harassed by Mr Collier reportedly feared for her safety, and it was reported she felt intimidated, fearing for her safety as CFMEU officials and 40 building workers surrounded her and a colleague?
No, I'm unaware of that, but I'm not surprised that would be her reaction.
Yes, that was reported in The Australian. How does this type of behaviour affect ABCC employees who are public servants?
Well, again, it's as I mentioned earlier on, public servants go about their way, go about their role in a respectful, courteous, conscientious manner, and such abuse and treatment is uncalled for and of most concern.
Which union has coverage of ABCC employees, their own kind of to represent them personally?
They would be able to be members of the CPSU.
Right, okay. Surely any union that represents public service employees would be pretty outraged and disgusted by this kind of conduct directed at public servants. I would imagine that if I was working for a union like that I'd raise this kind of conduct with you as APSC Commissioner. What representations have you had from the CPSU about these matters?
None.
I assume none in relation to perhaps Mr Setka or Mr Collier specifically, but generally I'm sure you would have had representations more broadly about the safety of ABCC employees.
No, I haven't received any representations.
None whatsoever?
No.
Are there members of, to your knowledge, are there members of the CPSU at the ABCC?
I don't know that.
Don't know. Fair enough. So, for example, Nadine Flood, the head of the CPSU, hasn't called you.
He doesn't know. We've allowed this to go. A number of these questions really relate to Mr. Lloyd's past statutory position, not his current one. But I understand you know, some leeway is given. But he's just given evidence that he doesn't know if anybody is a member of the union. How can you then follow up asking him about the activities of the union in relation to the ABCC? And I do think that I understand the political point you wish to make. These are properly questions of the ABCC, who appears tomorrow. Is that right, or Wednesday? One
Later in the week in another
Wednesday,
committee.
Wednesday.
And perhaps I'll raise them there, and I appreciate your advice, Senator Wong, but that doesn't sound like a point of order to me.
It is a point of order. The point of order is
on
relevance to this committee. You're asking this person questions about another agency. Now, he's given evidence he doesn't know if they're... hang on. He's just given evidence that he doesn't know if any members of the ABCC are in fact members of the union. I don't see how it is appropriate in this committee for you then to follow up with a question about the union that he says he doesn't know has any coverage in the ABCC.
Thank you, Senator Wong. I appreciate your assistance here. I have a couple of questions remaining which relate directly to his role as APSC, in the APSC. So, just to recap, no objections or complaints, or in fact any correspondence has been raised by the CPSU with you about the treatment of ABCC employees?
No, there's been none.
Right. Presumably that, I mean, they would have to be unaware of them, or...
Oh, point of order, Chair. You can't... He's given evidence he doesn't know if any of them are members of the union. You're now asking him to surmise what is in the minds of the union officials of the CPSU, who you don't know have any members.
Well, I'm just assuming
that. It's not in his knowledge.
Well, given the CPSU does have coverage of ABCC employees,
you weren't here, Senator McKenzie.
Typical.
Senator
To
McKenzie.
assume.
No, you can't make an assumption. That's a hypothetical question.
We had to be subjected to nearly 2 hours of questioning where
and I'm very
the minister
happy. And I'm very happy if you want to ask
referred you
questions from
continually to the
2012
Foreign
to make a political point because
Defence
you're
and
embarrassed about a
Trade,
commissioner
Senate
being found to be
estimates,
illegal.
which you
That's a
chose
matter
to
for
ignore
you. But
continually.
I'm just saying...
Order.
that,
Senators, thank you. This is very helpful commentary.
Well, I'm raising a point of order. That question is not in an appropriate form. You can't ask this witness, who's already given evidence, that he doesn't know if any of the people employed at the ABCC are members of the union, what's in the mind of the CPSU, which is what you've just asked.
Thank you, Senator Wong. I can understand your reluctance that these questions be asked,
well,
because
I
would be embarrassed to be associated with a union that failed to address these issues.
You're the chair. Could you please behave like the chair?
Thank you, Senator Wong.
I've let this go because I understand the political games which are being played. I'm making a different point, which is you can't ask this bloke to decide what's in the mind of the... Sorry, Mr Lloyd, to what's in the mind of the CPSU.
That's a fair point,
Thank you.
Senator Wong. I won't ask him to speculate on the mindset of the CPSU, but I think he's quite qualified to comment on what they have done and what they haven't done, which is well established.
Which is done.
Perhaps the Minister can assist. Has the CPSU or Ms Flood raised with you any issues about ABCC employees or their safety?
Not directly with me, no. I have personally raised with Ms Flood the issues, but she has not raised them with me.
Right. Do you know if she's raised them with her department?
I don't know.
Can you share with the committee what Ms Flood's response was when you raised the issue with her?
Unfortunately, I don't have that with me. I can take it on notice, though, and provide it to the committee.
If you could, that would be helpful. It's been reported publicly that Ms Flood is seeking the endorsement for the Senate of the Labor Party to replace Senator Cameron, and that a grouping that may support her in the party include the CFMEU. Minister, do you think that that's a relevant factor in her failure to raise the behaviour of the CFMEU?
It may well be,
hang on, Chair,
but I'm not able to provide those details.
I understand you want a political hit, but really... The Minister at Senate estimates is supposed to ask what's in the mind of a union official who doesn't have members.
I did answer the question saying I was not able to provide
Thank you.
information.
At least someone's being reasonable.
Thank you, Senator Wong. I guess we'll just have to leave it to observers to judge why the CPSU and Ms Flood have failed to raise this issue. But that's all the questions that I had. Senator McAllister?